Good morning, Southern Okie Mama here. Today I'm not going to be doing a painting. I haven't done a painting in a little bit because I just had another surgery, but I love to cook, so that is another type of art. So today I'm going to make biscuits and gravy. So come on and follow me and join me today as I make biscuits and gravy from the heart. First you're going to need a bowl and a skillet and set you out some sausage. You're going to need 2 cups of flour. This is a half a cup. And you're going to put about 2 cups of flour in your mixing bowl. You're also going to need baking powder. I usually do about 2 heaping teaspoons of baking powder. You're also going to need some salt. I use pink Himalayan salt. I just measure maybe half a teaspoon, and then we're going to stir it up. Next, you're going to use a can of evaporated milk, but you can also use heavy whipping cream. You just got to stir it up and get a feel for it. If it gets too thick and there's not enough moisture, you want to add just a little bit more of your evaporated milk. And sometimes I'll do half evaporated milk, half heavy whipping cream. It makes the softest biscuits ever. The secret to soft biscuits is add butter. You want to get yourself half a stick. You want to cut it up into little squares, and you want to fold it into your dough. Once you've done that, mix it all up. And I usually add this when it's dry, but I have started a little early today. So I'm kind of all over the place. I had to put my hair up. Always put your hair up when you're cooking. So I've got my dough on the counter. I put some flour under it and some flour on top of it. You want to do this so that your dough doesn't stick to your rolling pin and doesn't stick to your counter. Otherwise you're going to be scraping for a little while. So what I like to do is just pat it down, making sure your hands are clean. But I pat it down. I don't really mold it. If you want to mold it, you can. Just like this, just kind of mold it like you do any other dough. And just work a little bit more flour in there if your dough is too soft, if it's too moist. But you don't want your dough so thick that it feels kind of hard. So once you have that down, you want to just pat it down and then go get your rolling pin because it's time to start rolling that dough. Let's get to measuring and rolling that dough. I'm not going to be making very many biscuits this morning. Not everyone in my family will eat biscuits and gravy. Some in my family will actually eat fried gravy, and that's okay. To each their own. I do not measure. I do not use a biscuit cutter because some days I like smaller biscuits and some days I like bigger biscuits. It's just depending. And today I want big fluffy biscuits because you're going to come along with me and see what it looks outside because we were supposed to get snowy conditions. So we'll see what happened. We'll see if a little blizzard came last night. And if so, it's going to be great. We're going to break out the 4-wheelers and the sleds, and we're going to have some good old southern fun up here in North Dakota. Now we're going to start on our gravy. So right now, the oven is preheating at 400 degrees, and I use 400 degrees because my oven, for some reason, cooks hotter. So I don't want to burn my biscuits, but I want them to be hot enough to rise slowly so that they're soft and moist. So let's get started on our sausage today. I'm going to be using Jimmy Dean, regular. This is my favorite kind of sausage. It just tastes better than most. So I'm going to cut this in half and use this. And then we're going to put a little bit of Crisco in that pan, just a little bit. Because once our sausage is cooked, we're going to add a little bit more so that we can add our flour and add our cream to make our gravy. So stay with me and let's see how we're going to do this. Okay, so right now we have our sausage in our skillet. We're going to just put a little bit of Crisco in there. Now you can use butter, but I have run out of my thick butter. So we're just going to use Crisco. And we are just going to melt it into that. I use a skillet because I like the iron that's in it, but I also like the flavor that it gives my food. Plus, they're easy to clean, and I just love them. I grew up with them, and they're my favorite kind of pan. We've got our sausage all browned. We're gonna add a little bit of Crisco. Now, I like to measure with the heart. Whatever you add, you can add just as much flour. So it just depends on how much gravy you want. 2 heaping teaspoons, I'm gonna say 2 heaping tablespoons. I have a teaspoon, but I have measured over. So we're just gonna stir that in until it melts. My biscuits are already in the oven. So once it's all melted, let me show you what it looks like. So this, yes, I'm having to turn my phone over, and that's okay. That's okay for today. Today is a heartwarming day. It's very cold and snowy outside. And now we're going to put our flour in. And I'll show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like when I put my flour in. And you just want to stir it up until it's kind of thick around the sausage, but not too thick that you don't have just a little bit of moisture. If you can see that, you're going to stir it just a little bit. Stirring my skillet around, which that's okay. Apparently it wants to just spin around and dance this morning, and that's okay with me. And we're just going to spread this out and let this cook. And you want it to kind of brown just a little, and then you just give it a moment to do that, and then we'll start with our cream and a little bit of water and get going. Biscuits, if you can see, are rising beautifully. And they are in the oven at 400 degrees, and we'll take a look here in just a moment to see how they look. Now that we've had it cooking for a bit, we're going to take the can of cream that we had left over from our biscuits that we didn't use. We're going to pour that in. Then we're going to pour in a whole other can. There we go. Now we're just going to stir that in together. And what this does is it takes that flour and it just thickens it up. As you can see, it's already starting to thicken. This is where the magic happens. This is one of my family's favorite comfort foods, especially on a cold, cold morning. And now that we've thickened, we're going to add some water. I use filtered water because I just don't drink the water out of the sink here. I do not have a soft water filter here, so we use filtered water. And I get it either out of the refrigerator or I buy it. And now that we have added some water, and no, I did not measure, I usually get a 32-ounce cup and I fill it full, and then I just pour and listen to my heart and see how the gravy feels to me. If it feels too thick, I add a little more water. If it feels too thin, we stir, keep it on medium heat to let it rise, the flour rise again, thicken it up. There we go. Oh, I'm making a mess on the stove, and that's okay to make a mess when you're cooking. I say if you haven't made a mess, you haven't been cooking. And this is what my mom was like. You've made a mess in my kitchen. I tell her, well, if I didn't make a mess, how are you gonna know I was cooking? So, just stirring that up. See how beautifully thick it is? It's beautiful. Now we're gonna turn our dial down to low, to simmer. We don't want it to get too thick. We don't want it to burn. So now, this is where I add my pepper. And yes, my family loves pepper. I do not have white pepper. We're going to add some salt. And then we're going to stir. And you see how beautifully thick that is. My skillet is dancing around this morning so much. And that's okay. That is okay. So let's see what our gravy looks like now. It's pretty thick. So we're gonna add just a little bit more water. I like my gravy thick, but I don't like it too thick. And this goes hand in hand. If you're having a hard time, especially in today's economy, you can thin out that gravy as much as you want. You're still getting some good flavor. You're still getting some gravy, and it fills everyone's tummy. So that's the good thing about some homemade Southern cooking. Anything homemade goes a long way. And I'm hoping to jump on here soon, making some of my homemade jalapeno cheddar bread. It is so good. Let's taste. That's almost there. So we're going to add a little bit more Himalayan salt. And I use Himalayan salt because it just has better minerals than regular salt. I do not use table salt. I don't think I like my ankle swelling. So it is still thick. We're going to add a little bit more water. And I'm going to tell you, the more water you add, the more gravy you're going to have. So, but use it sparingly. Don't just pour it all in there or you're going to have yourself a soppy mess. And we don't want that. All right. She's looking pretty good. And there's just enough gravy for everyone in my household. It's perfect. Just got our biscuits out of the oven. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to paint them with butter. Now, stick butter is best because it just doesn't have all that bad stuff in it that margarine has. I prefer stick butter, and I prefer salted stick butter. Even with my cookies, I prefer salted stick butter. I'm very particular about my butter. Look how beautiful and golden they are. Now we're going to put some gravy on one of our biscuits. And what I did is I cut it in half. Look how beautiful that is. And there you have it. Southern biscuits and gravy. You guys enjoy and have a beautiful day.